Captain Lee Taman stood on the bridge of the UES Endeavour and stared at the massive structure ahead. The space station was bigger than any city on Earth. Its metal surface gleamed with strange lights that pulsed in patterns he could not understand. This was Nexus Prime, the center of galactic government, and today humans would meet the galaxy for the first time. "Captain, we are receiving their docking instructions," said communications specialist Yoon Hana. She looked nervous as she read the alien text that appeared on her screen. "They want us to use docking bay 847Z. That appears to be in the outer ring." Chief Engineer Park So-young checked her instruments and frowned. "The outer ring is where they keep cargo ships and waste disposal vessels. Not exactly a warm welcome for a diplomatic mission." Tactical Officer Kim Jae-ho studied the readings from his sensors. "Sir, I count over 3,000 ships docked at this station. Most of them are designs I have never seen before. Some of them are massive. Our ship looks like a toy compared to those vessels." Lee Taman nodded slowly. The Endeavour was humanity's most advanced starship, built over 15 years with the best technology Earth could produce, but compared to the alien vessels around Nexus Prime, it looked primitive and small. The human ship was made of steel and ceramics. The alien ships seemed to be made of materials that shifted and changed color as he watched. "Remember our mission," Lee Taman told his crew. "We are here to represent all of humanity. The Galactic Confederation has invited us to join them. This is the most important moment in human history." The docking process took 3 hours. Alien traffic controllers kept changing their instructions, sending the human ship from one bay to another. Finally, they were allowed to dock at a small port that seemed designed for minor cargo vessels. The airlock connected with a loud bang that echoed through the ship. Dr. Choi Min-ho, the expedition scientist who studied alien life, was the first to step through the airlock. The air on the other side smelled strange, like metal and ozone. The gravity was slightly heavier than Earth normal, making each step feel like walking through thick mud. The docking bay was dirty and filled with containers that leaked strange fluids. Other ships in nearby bays were clearly cargo vessels or ships that had seen better days. This was not where important diplomatic visitors were usually brought. A figure approached them from across the bay. It was tall, nearly 3 meters high, and walked on 6 legs. Its body was covered in a hard shell that looked like black metal. 2 large compound eyes dominated its triangular head, and 4 arms extended from its torso. This was Ambassador Veltar of the Hegemony, the species that ruled most of the galaxy. "So," Veltar said, his voice coming from a small device attached to his shell, "these are the humans." The translator made his words sound cold and mechanical. "You are smaller than I expected." Lee Taman stepped forward and offered the formal greeting that human diplomats had practiced for months. "Ambassador Veltar, I am Captain Lee Taman of the United Earth ship Endeavour. We are honored to meet with the Galactic Confederation and hope to build a peaceful relationship between our species." Veltar's compound eyes focused on the human captain. Yes, very nice words, follow me. The classification committee is waiting to evaluate your species." As they walked through the station's corridors, Lee Taman saw aliens everywhere. Some floated through the air like living clouds of gas. Others were tall and thin like walking crystals that sang to each other in musical tones. Robot-like beings with glowing eyes moved cargo with mechanical precision. Every alien they passed stopped to stare at the human delegation, and Lee Taman could hear them making sounds that might have been laughter. "Tell me, Captain," Veltar said as they walked, "what is your species' greatest technological achievement?" "Our faster-than-light drive system," Lee Taman replied with pride. "It took us 40 years to develop, but it can push our ships to nearly 10 times the speed of light." Veltar made a sound that the translator interpreted as amusement. 10 times light speed. How charming. My personal shuttle can travel at 800 times light speed. The newest hegemony warships reach over 2,000 times light speed. Dr. Choi Min-ho felt his heart sink. Humanity had spent decades developing their FTL drive, and they thought it was an incredible achievement. Now he learned that their best technology was centuries behind what the galaxy considered normal. They entered a large chamber filled with representatives from dozens of alien species. The room buzzed with conversations in languages that sounded like music, static, mathematical equations, and sounds that human ears could barely detect. When the humans entered, the room became quiet. A floating crystal being approached them. Its body sparkled with internal lights, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes. I am Resonant Prime Zilnara. I will conduct your species evaluation today. Evaluation? Asked Park So-young. Of course, Zilnara replied. All new species must be classified according to their technological level, biological capabilities, and potential for development. Based on our preliminary observations, we believe humans fall into Category 7. What does Category 7 mean? Lee Taemin asked. An alien that looked like a walking machine with glowing circuits answered. Category 7 species are considered developing primitives. They have achieved basic space travel but lack the technological or biological advancement needed for meaningful participation in galactic civilization. The mechanical alien continued. Category 7 species are typically assigned to remote systems where they can grow and develop without interfering with the work of advanced civilizations. Think of it as a nursery for infant species. Yoon Hana translated quietly for the human delegation, but her voice was tight with anger. They are calling us babies who need to be kept away from the adults. For the next 4 hours, the humans were subjected to various tests and examinations. Alien. Scientists scanned their bodies, tested their reflexes, and analyzed samples of their technology. Each test seemed to confirm what the aliens already believed about human limitations. Their neural processing speed is quite slow, observed one alien that resembled a giant jellyfish. Average reaction time is nearly half a second. Most sapient species average under 1/10 of a second. Their physical strength is pathetic, added a reptilian alien with scales that changed color as it spoke. Maximum lifting capacity is barely twice their body weight. Even our domesticated animals are stronger. Look at their technology, laughed an energy being that appeared as a shifting ball of light. Metal alloys and chemical propulsion. They still use combustion engines? How delightfully primitive. The worst moment came when they tested human lifespan data. When the aliens learned that humans lived less than 100 years, the room erupted in sounds that the translators identified as laughter and expressions of pity. 70 to 80 years? Veltar exclaimed. That is barely enough time to complete basic education in most civilized species. No wonder they seem so limited. The classification was completed within 6 hours. Humans were officially designated as a Class 7 developing species and assigned to the Outer Rim territories, a region of space far from the galactic core where important business was conducted. You will be given the Kepler 442 system, Zilnara announced. It has 3 habitable worlds and adequate resources for a primitive species. Perhaps in a few thousand years you will develop enough to warrant reclassification. As the human delegation prepared to leave Nexus Prime, they overheard conversations between aliens discussing Earth's new inhabitants. The translator couldn't capture all the nuances, but the meaning was clear. Soft pink weaklings who think they belong among the stars. Give them a few decades and they will probably blow themselves up with their primitive weapons. I wonder how long before they beg to become servants to a real civilization. They are almost cute in their ignorance, like watching children play with toys they do not understand. The journey back to the Endeavor was silent. Each human crew member felt the weight of their species' failure. They had come to the galaxy hoping to find their place among the stars, only to discover that the galaxy saw them as amusing pets at best. As their ship undocked from Nexus Prime and began the long journey to their assigned system, Captain Lee Taemin gathered his crew in the main meeting room. They underestimated us today, he said quietly. They looked at our technology and our biology and decided we were not worth their attention. Maybe they are right about some things. Maybe we are slower and weaker and more primitive than most galactic species. He paused and looked at each member of his crew. But they made one mistake. They assumed that being different meant being inferior. They forgot that sometimes the greatest strength comes from being underestimated. Park So-young was the first to smile. So what do we do now, Captain? We go to our new home, Lee Taman replied. We build our colonies, we develop our technology, and we show this galaxy what humans can accomplish when everyone expects us to fail. The Endeavor turned toward the outer rim and engaged its primitive FTL drive. Behind them, Nexus Prime continued its important business, already forgetting about the small delegation of beings from a world called Earth. None of the advanced species bothered to notice that the human ship's course. 5 years had passed since humanity's first meeting with the Galactic Confederation. Commander Park Ji-woo stood in the command center of the human colony ship New Hope and looked at the status reports from their 3 worlds. The news was not good. Sir, the Vorthak Empire has intercepted another one of our trade convoys, reported Lieutenant Kim So-ra. They destroyed 2 cargo ships and took the crews prisoner. They claim our ships were in their territory, but the navigation logs show we were in neutral space. Park Ji-woo rubbed his tired eyes. This was the 7th attack in 3 months. The Vorthak were a military species that looked like giant lizards with 4 arms and razor-sharp teeth. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that could melt through steel. More importantly, they seemed to enjoy bullying humans. What about our request to the Confederation for protection? Park Ji-woo asked. Denied again, replied Communications Officer Yoon Ha-na, who had transferred to colonial service after the Endeavor mission. They say it is a minor dispute between developing species and not worthy of Confederation attention. They suggest we negotiate directly with the Vorthak. Park Ji-woo knew that negotiation was impossible. The Vorthak Empire considered humans to be useful target practice for their young warriors. Every human ship they destroyed was another trophy for their military academies. The situation on the human colonies was becoming desperate. Without trade with other species, they could not get the advanced materials needed for expansion. Earth continued to send supplies, but the journey took months even with their improved FTL drives. The humans were trapped in their small corner of space-like animals in a cage. Sir, there is something else, said Chief Science Officer Lee Yoon-ji. We received another rejection from the Nexari Technology Exchange. They refused to sell us their basic industrial equipment. They say our currency is worthless and our technology is too primitive to be useful in trade. The Nexari were machine beings who had replaced most of their biological parts with advanced technology. They controlled much of the galaxy's manufacturing and were known for making excellent deals with other advanced species. But they would not even speak to humans except to laugh at their requests. Park Ji-woo walked to the observation deck and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, thousands of alien civilizations were trading, sharing knowledge, and building amazing things together. Humans were excluded from all of it because the galaxy had decided they were not advanced enough to matter. But Park Ji-woo knew something the aliens did not know. During those 5 years of isolation, humanity had not been sitting still. On Earth, engineer Nam Soo-jin had been working on quantum computing systems that used different principles than alien technology. While most species built their computers, using energy patterns and crystalline matrices, Nam Soo-jin's team used quantum entanglement in ways that seemed impossible to alien scientists. Their computers were slower than alien systems, but they were more reliable and used much less power. And the asteroid mining stations. Teams of human workers had developed new techniques for extracting rare metals. They could not compete with alien mining equipment, but they had learned to find resources in places where alien scanners detected nothing valuable. Slowly, humanity was building up stockpiles of materials that other species thought were worthless. The most important work was happening in the research laboratories. Dr. Kang Do-hyun had made breakthrough discoveries in energy manipulation by studying the wreckage of alien technology that the Vorthak had left behind after their attacks. Instead of trying to copy alien designs, human scientists were learning to understand the basic principles and create their own solutions. Commander, called Lieutenant Bae Young-soo from the communication station. We are receiving a distress signal from an unknown vessel. The signal is coming from the Tau Ceti system. Park Ji-woo returned to the command center. What kind of vessel? The energy signature matches luminal technology. but it is very weak. They might be in serious trouble. The luminals were beings made of pure energy who lived inside special containment fields. They were one of the most advanced species in the galaxy, and rarely had contact with lower category species like humans. A luminal ship in distress was almost unheard of. "Set course for Tau Ceti," Park Ji-woo ordered. "Maximum speed." "Sir," said Kim Sora carefully, "the luminals have never acknowledged our existence except to dismiss us as primitive. If we help them, they might not even thank us. And if we fail to help them, they might blame us for their problems." Park Ji-woo considered this. It was true that the luminals had been particularly cruel in their judgment of humanity. During the classification hearings 5 years ago, a luminal representative had called humans biological waste that somehow achieved space travel. "Maybe," Park Ji-woo said, "but if we want the galaxy to see us differently, we need to show them who we really are. Sometimes that means helping people who have been unkind to us." The journey to Tau Ceti took 18 hours. When they arrived, they found a luminal vessel drifting in space near a gas giant. The ship was beautiful, made of materials that looked like liquid starlight, but its energy patterns were failing. Whatever had happened to it, the damage was severe. "This is the human vessel New Hope," Park Ji-woo broadcast on standard frequencies. "We received your distress signal. Do you require assistance?" For several minutes there was no response. Then a voice like singing crystal replied, "This is Luminal Captain Zorthak. Our containment systems are failing. Our crew is dying. But we cannot accept help from a Category 7 species. You do not have the technology to understand our systems." "Captain Zorthak," Park Ji-woo replied patiently, "we may not understand your technology, but we understand engineering principles. Sometimes a different approach can solve problems that advanced solutions cannot fix. Will you let us try?" Another long silence followed. Finally, Zorthak's voice returned, weaker than before. "Very well. But when you fail, do not expect us to be grateful for your efforts." Park Ji-woo sent over his best engineering team, led by Chief Engineer Park So-young. She had been studying alien technology for 5 years and had developed new theories about how different species approached energy manipulation. The luminal ship's interior was like nothing the humans had ever seen. Corridors flowed like rivers of light, and the walls seemed to be made of solidified music. The luminal crew members were dying, their energy forms flickering like candles in the wind. "The problem is in their primary containment matrix," Park So-young reported. "Some kind of cascade failure is causing their energy fields to collapse. Their backup systems are trying to compensate, but they are making the problem worse." "Can you fix it?" Park Ji-woo asked. "Not with their technology," Park So-young replied. "But I have an idea. The quantum computers that Nam Soo-jin's team developed back on Earth use a different approach to energy field manipulation. If I modify our computer core to interface with their systems, I might be able to create a stable backup containment field." It was a desperate plan. Human technology was not designed to work with luminal systems. If Park So-young made a mistake, she could make the cascade failure worse and kill the entire luminal crew. For 6 hours, Park So-young and her team worked to connect human quantum computers to alien energy systems. The luminals watched in amazement as the primitive humans jury-rigged solutions using equipment that looked like toys compared to their advanced technology. "Their approach is completely wrong according to standard engineering principles," Captain Zorthak observed. "They are using brute force calculations where elegant energy manipulation should suffice. It should not work." But it did work. The IDIMPO, human quantum computers designed to be reliable rather than elegant, provided the stable platform that the luminal containment systems needed. One by one, the dying crew members began to recover as their energy forms stabilized. "This is impossible," Zorthak whispered as his own form grew brighter and more solid. "Your primitive technology should not be compatible with our advanced systems." "Maybe," said Park So-young as she made final adjustments to the improvised repair. "The problem is thinking that different means worse. Our technology is not better than yours, but it approaches problems differently. Sometimes that difference is exactly what you need." The luminal captain was quiet for a long time as he watched his crew recover. Finally, he spoke to Park Ji-woo, directly. "Commander, my people owe you a debt that we cannot easily repay. You have saved lives that we thought were lost. But I must ask you something. Why did you help us? We have been unkind to your species. We dismissed you as primitives not worthy of our attention. You had every reason to leave us to die." Park Ji-woo smiled. "Because that is what humans do. We help people who need help, even if they do not like us. Maybe especially if they do not like us." As the human ships prepared to leave the Tau Ceti system, Captain Zorthak sent a final message. "Commander Park Ji-woo, I will remember what your species did today. Not all luminals share the prejudices of the Confederation Council. Some of us are beginning to wonder if the galaxy has made a mistake about humanity." The journey back to human space was quiet. Park Ji-woo knew that word of the rescue would spread throughout the galaxy, but he also knew that most species would dismiss it as a lucky accident. One act. Admiral Song Hee-jin stood in the command center of the human space station Deep Watch and stared at the emergency reports flooding in from across the galaxy. Every screen showed the same terrifying image, entire solar systems going dark, their stars dimming until nothing remained but empty space. "Ma'am, we just lost contact with the Rigel sector," reported Captain Kim Jae-ho, now serving as her intelligence officer. "That makes 43 systems in the past month. The Confederation is calling it the Void Plague. Song Hye-jin had been following the crisis since it began 6 months ago. At first, the advanced species thought it was some kind of natural phenomenon. Maybe old stars were burning out faster than expected, or perhaps black holes were consuming matter at unusual rates. But as more systems vanished, it became clear that something was deliberately destroying entire regions of space. "What do we know about the affected areas?" Song Hye-jin asked. "All the destroyed systems had advanced civilizations," replied Dr. Shin Woo-hyuk, who had been studying the plague data for weeks. "The hegemony has lost 12 major worlds. The Nexari have lost their primary manufacturing centers. Even the luminals have abandoned 3 of their energy collection stations. The strange thing was that the plague seemed to target the most technologically advanced civilizations first. The hegemony's greatest cities with their quantum computers and energy manipulation systems were among the first to vanish. Meanwhile, primitive worlds with simple technology remained untouched. Admiral, came a transmission from the Confederation, Emergency Council. The hegemony has formally requested that all Category 7 species remain in their assigned territories until this crisis passes. They do not want primitive civilizations interfering with their response efforts. Song Hee-jin almost smiled at the irony. Even while facing destruction, the advanced species still considered humans too primitive to help. They would rather face extinction than admit they might need assistance from a Category 7 civilization. But Song Hye-jin had not become an admiral by following orders that made no sense. "Dr. Shin, I want you to take a research team to the edge of the plague zone. Use our most basic ships and equipment. If the plague is targeting advanced technology, maybe our primitive systems will be safer." "Admiral, that could be suicide," protested Captain Kim Jae-ho. "We don't know what this plague actually is or how it spreads." "Which is exactly why we need to investigate," Song Hye-jin replied. "The advanced species are too afraid to get close enough to study it properly. They keep losing their sophisticated research vessels. Maybe what we need is a primitive approach." 3 days later, Captain Oh Min-seo led a small fleet of human ships toward the Void Plague Zone. His vessels were the oldest in the human fleet, built with simple metal hulls and basic computer systems. Compared to modern alien ships, they were practically antiques. As they approached the plague zone, Oh Min-seo could see the edge of the affected area. It looked like someone had drawn a line in space. On one side, stars shined normally. On the other side, there was nothing but darkness. "Captain, we are detecting some kind of energy field at the boundary," reported scanner operator Lee Dasam. "It appears to be analyzing our ships." Oh Min-seo felt his heart racing, but he kept his voice calm. "All ships, maintain course and speed. Keep all systems at minimum power. Let's see what happens." The human ships crossed into the plague zone, and for a moment nothing happened. Then Ominseo's instruments began detecting something that made no sense. The plague was not a disease or a weapon. It was some kind of intelligent system that was examining everything it encountered. "Captain, the energy field is scanning our technology," Dr. Shin Woo-hyuk reported from the research vessel Discovery. "It seems confused by our equipment. Our systems are so primitive that it cannot classify them properly." For 6 hours, the human ships traveled through the plague zone while the mysterious energy field continued its examination. They passed the remains of alien civilizations that had been consumed by the plague. Massive space stations hung empty, in the void. Planetary surfaces were stripped bare of all technology, leaving only natural landscapes behind. But the human ships remained untouched. Whatever the plague was, it seemed unable to affect their simple technology. "Dr. Shin, are you getting readings on what this plague actually does?" Ominseo asked. "Yes, sir. And you are not going to believe this. The plague appears to be some kind of reset mechanism. It targets quantum-based technology and energy manipulation systems. The more advanced a civilization's technology, the more vulnerable they are. It's like the plague was designed to prevent any species from becoming too technologically advanced." Ominseo stared at his instruments. "You're saying this is artificial? Someone or something created this plague on purpose?" "That's exactly what I'm saying. And based on the energy patterns I'm detecting, this system has been dormant for millions of years. Something recently activated it. The human fleet spent 2 weeks in the plague zone, gathering data that no other species had been able to collect. Their primitive instruments, unaffected by the plague's targeting systems, recorded everything. When they finally returned to human space, they carried information that would change everything." Admiral Song Hee-jin reviewed Dr. Shin's report with growing amazement. The Void Plague was not trying to destroy the galaxy. It was trying to test it. The artificial system had been created by an ancient civilization as a way to identify species worthy of inheriting their knowledge and technology. "So you're telling me that our primitive technology makes us immune to this test?" Song Hye-jin asked. "Not immune," Dr. Shin corrected. "But our technology is so different from what the system expects that it cannot properly categorize us. We're flying under its detection threshold." Song Hye-jin immediately sent a message to the Galactic Confederation, offering to share humanity's findings. The response was swift and predictable. "The Confederation Science Council has reviewed your data and determined that it is the result of primitive measurement errors," came the official reply.
Category 7 species do not have the technological capability to conduct meaningful research in plague zones. Please remain in your assigned territories. But not all aliens dismissed the human data. Captain Zorthak of the Luminols, who still
remembered the human rescue of his crew, convinced several other species to examine the human findings more carefully. "The humans may be primitive," Zorthak told a secret meeting of concerned alien leaders. "But their data is consistent and detailed. More importantly, they are the only ones who have successfully entered plague zones and returned with useful information." Word began to spread through unofficial channels that humans might have discovered something important about the Void Plague. Species that had previously ignored humanity started paying attention to reports from human space. The Resonants, whose crystalline consciousness made them especially vulnerable to the plague, sent a private message to Admiral Song Hye-jin. "We have lost 17 worlds to this plague," the message said. "Our most advanced cities are gone. If you truly understand this threat, we would be grateful for any assistance you can provide." Similar messages arrived from other species as the plague continued to spread. The Nexari, facing the collapse of their manufacturing empire, offered to trade advanced materials for human protection. Even some Vorthak military commanders, their pride overcome by fear, quietly asked if human ships could escort their evacuation fleets. Admiral Song Hye-jin found herself in a position no human had ever experienced before. After years of being dismissed and ignored, alien species were coming to humanity for help. "Ma'am," Captain Kim Jae-ho reported, "we have received formal requests for assistance from 47 different species. They want us to help them evacuate. They're people from plague zones." "And the Confederation?" Song Hye-jin asked. still refusing to acknowledge our findings. But they have lost control of the situation. Individual species are making their own decisions about whether to trust human data. Song Hae-jin looked out at the stars and realized that everything was changing. The galaxy had spent years laughing at human limitations. Now those same limitations were humanity's greatest strength. Send a message to all requesting species, she ordered. Tell them that humanity will provide whatever assistance we can. We may be primitive, but we are not going to abandon people who need help. As human ships began rescue missions across the galaxy, word spread that the primitive Category 7 species was somehow succeeding where advanced civilizations had failed. The laughter was finally beginning to stop. For the first time since joining the galactic community, humans were being taken seriously. The question was whether it was already too late to save the galaxy from the ancient test that was consuming it system by system. President Yu Sang-wook walked into the Grand Assembly of the Galactic Confederation for the second time in human history. But this time was different. The massive chamber that had once echoed with alien laughter at human expense was now filled with desperate voices begging for help. The human delegation will address the assembly, announced the chamber's artificial intelligence. For the first time ever, these words were not met with dismissive sounds from the alien representatives. Yu Sang-wook approached the central speaking platform. Around him sat thousands of aliens from hundreds of species. Many of their homeworlds had been consumed by the Void Plague. Others faced imminent destruction as the plague continued to spread across the galaxy. Honored representatives, Yu Sang-wook began. 6 months ago, this assembly classified humanity as too primitive to contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization. Today I stand before you not to seek revenge for that dismissal, but to offer our full assistance in fighting the threat that faces us all. The chamber remained silent. Even the hegemony representatives, who had been most vocal in their contempt for humans, listened carefully to every word. We have learned that the Void Plague targets advanced quantum-based technology. The more sophisticated your civilization's technology, the more vulnerable you are. This is why your greatest cities and most advanced ships have been the first to fall. Ambassador Veltar of the hegemony spoke from his elevated platform. If this is true, then how can a Category 7 species possibly help us? Your technology is centuries behind ours. That is exactly why we can help you, Yu Sang-wook replied. Our primitive technology operates on principles that the plague does not recognize as threatening. Our ships can go where your vessels cannot survive. Our computers can process data in plague zones while your quantum systems fail. To prove his point, Yu Sang-wook activated a holographic display showing footage from human rescue missions. The images showed human ships looking crude and simple compared to alien vessels, successfully evacuating populations from worlds that advanced species had been forced to abandon. In the past month, human vessels have rescued over 2 million alien civilians from plague zones, Yu Sang-wook continued. We have established refugee camps in human space for 17 different species. We have shared our plague resistance, research freely with anyone who requested it. Commander Lim Ah-young, now leading the human rescue fleet, appeared via holographic transmission from the front lines. President Yu, I can confirm that mixed human-alien crews are having success in plague zones. When we combine our resistant technology with alien knowledge and resources, we can not only survive in affected areas, but actually slow the plague's advance. The assembly erupted in excited conversations. Species that had never spoken to humans before were suddenly demanding details about human technology and rescue capabilities. But not everyone was pleased with humanity's rising status. In a private meeting room deep within Nexus Prime, the hegemony's ruling council was discussing what they saw as a crisis worse than the plague itself. If humans become the galaxy's saviors, our position as the dominant species will be threatened, declared High Counselor Kethabar, his insectoid features twisted with concern. For 10,000 years, the hegemony has maintained order through technological superiority. If primitive species can solve problems we cannot, our entire system of governance becomes questionable. The humans must be eliminated, agreed Counselor Zarthon. We can claim it is a necessary quarantine measure to prevent the spread of dangerous primitive thinking. The other species are desperate enough that they might accept this explanation. But what if the humans truly are immune to the plague? Asked a younger counselor. If we destroy them, we lose our best hope of stopping this threat. High Counselor Kethvar's compound eyes glowed with cold calculation. Then we use them to defeat the plague and eliminate them afterward. Once the crisis passes, we can return to the natural order with the hegemony in control. The conspiracy might have remained secret, but Dr. An Seo-jin, working in human intelligence, had been monitoring hegemony communications as part of her research into plague-resistant technology. Her quantum computers, designed to be compatible with multiple alien systems, accidentally intercepted the encrypted planning sessions. Admiral Song, Dr. An reported urgently. The hegemony leadership is planning to attack human space. They want to destroy us before we can become too influential in galactic politics. Admiral Song Hae-jin reviewed the intercepted communications with growing alarm. How much time do we have? Based on their discussions, they plan to strike within 2 weeks. They are positioning it as a quarantine action to protect the galaxy from primitive contamination. Song Hae-jin immediately contacted President Yu Sang-wook, who was still at Nexus Prime. Mr. President, you need to get our people out of Confederation space immediately. The hegemony is planning a preemptive attack. But when Yu Sang-wook tried to leave Nexus Prime quietly, he found his path blocked by hegemony security forces. I'm sorry, President Yu, Ambassador Veltar said with false politeness, but we cannot allow you to leave during this crisis. Your safety is too important to galactic security. Yu Sang-wook realized he was being held prisoner. The hegemony wanted to keep human leadership trapped while they launched their attack on human space. Meanwhile, the plague continued to spread. The Kepler sector, home to dozens of advanced civilizations, went dark in a single day. The Nexari manufacturing worlds fell silent one by one. Even the energy-based luminals began abandoning their collection stations as the plague approached their core territories. Captain Zorthak of the luminals, still grateful for the human rescue years earlier, sent a secret message to Admiral Song Hae-jin. The hegemony fleet is moving toward your space, he warned. They plan to strike while your leadership is trapped at Nexus Prime. But not all species support this action. Some of us remember who came to our aid when we were in trouble. As the hegemony fleet approached human space, they expected to find defenseless colonies protected only by primitive ships and weapons. What they found instead was a coalition of species that had been secretly working with humans for months. The Resonance, whose crystal ships could harmonize with human quantum computers, created defensive formations around human worlds. The Luminals, using their energy manipulation abilities enhanced by human engineering, established protective barriers that confused hegemony targeting systems. Even some Nexari units, grateful for human rescue of their workers from plague zones, refused to support the hegemony attack and instead offered their manufacturing capabilities to human defenders. This is impossible, transmitted High Counselor Kethvar as his invasion fleet faced unexpected resistance. These primitive species should not be able to coordinate such a defense. Perhaps, replied Admiral Song Hae-jin from her command ship, you have forgotten that being different does not mean being inferior. You have also forgotten that people remember who helped them in their time of need. The Battle of New Sol became the turning point. The hegemony's most advanced warships, with their quantum-based weapons and energy shields, found themselves fighting an enemy that used tactics and technology they could not understand or predict. Human ships did not rely on single advanced systems that could fail or be countered. Instead, they used multiple redundant systems that could be rapidly reconfigured. When hegemony forces adapted to one approach, human commanders switched to another. Colonel Kim So-ra led the ground defense when hegemony troops tried to capture human colonies directly. The insectoid warriors, accustomed to fighting enemies with similar technology and tactics, found themselves facing an opponent that excelled at improvisation and adaptation. Their weapons are primitive, reported one hegemony field commander, but they use them in ways our combat computers cannot predict. They turn our own advantages against us. As news of the human defense spread throughout the galaxy, Other species began to question the established order. If primitive humans could successfully resist the mighty hegemony, then perhaps the galaxy's power structure was not as fixed as everyone had believed. The Vorthak Empire, which had spent years bullying human shipping, suddenly found their military doctrine questioned by their own officers. If humans can outfight the hegemony, asked General Cortex, then perhaps we have been targeting the wrong enemy. Dr. Jung Haiwan, working in the human research stations, made a breakthrough that changed everything. Her analysis of plague samples revealed not just the system's origin, but its true purpose. The plague is not trying to destroy advanced civilizations, she announced to the Emergency Scientific Council. It is testing them. The ancient species that created this system wanted to identify civilizations that could adapt, cooperate, and find new solutions to impossible problems. You're saying this is all a test? Asked a resident scientist. Exactly. And humanity is not passing the test because we are immune to the plague. We are passing it because we are doing what the test was designed to measure. We are adapting, cooperating with other species, and finding solutions that pure technological advancement cannot provide. As Jung Haiwan's discovery spread throughout the galaxy, species began to understand what was really happening. Yay. Fleet Admiral Park Dong-woo watched the hegemony attack fleet approach human space and smiled grimly. The insectoid empire had sent their most advanced warships, expecting to crush humanity's primitive defenses in a matter of hours. They were about to learn why underestimating humans was a dangerous mistake. Admiral, enemy fleet is entering weapons range, reported Tactical Officer Choi Byung-ho. They are using standard hegemony attack formation Delta 7. Their quantum cannons are charging. Signal all ships, Park Dong-woo ordered. Execute Plan Chaos. The human fleet did not meet the hegemony attack with a traditional formation. Instead, human ships scattered in seemingly random directions, using unpredictable flight patterns that confused enemy targeting computers. While hegemony ships relied on sophisticated battle management systems, human vessels operated independently, with each captain making split-second tactical decisions. This makes no sense, transmitted hegemony fleet commander Zelkrath. They are not following any recognized tactical doctrine. How can they coordinate without a central command system? The answer was uniquely human. While alien species had developed advanced technology to solve coordination problems, humans had learned to work together through communication, intuition, and trust. Each human captain understood the overall strategy, but was free to adapt their approach based on changing conditions. The Battle of the Outer Colonies lasted 12 hours. The hegemony's energy weapons, designed to overwhelm alien shields and armor, proved less effective against human ships that used layered defensive systems. When their primary shields failed, human vessels switched to backup systems. When those failed, they used armor plating and electronic countermeasures. Most importantly, human ships were designed to keep fighting even when badly damaged. Alien vessels, with their sophisticated integrated systems, became helpless when key components were destroyed. Human ships could lose half their systems and still remain combat effective. Sir, the enemy is adapting to our attack patterns, reported Weapons Officer Kim Min-jun from the human cruiser Defiance. Their quantum computers are learning our tactics. Then we change tactics, replied Captain Lee Soo-jin. Switch to pattern. Gamma 4 and prepare kinetic bombardment. The hegemony forces were stunned when human ships abandoned energy weapons entirely and began firing simple metal projectiles. Their shields, designed to stop sophisticated plasma and quantum attacks, offered little protection against chunks of dense metal traveling at tremendous speed. They are using primitive kinetic weapons, reported a confused hegemony gunner. How are these ancient weapons penetrating our shields? The answer was that human engineers had learned to make their primitive weapons devastatingly effective. The kinetic projectiles were not simple chunks of metal, but carefully designed penetrators that could adapt their shape and density during impact. As the space battle raged, the hegemony also launched ground attacks on human colonies. They expected quick victory against primitives armed with chemical projectile weapons and basic armor. Instead, they encountered the most adaptive and resourceful fighters they had ever faced. Colonel Kim So-ra defended the colony of New Seoul with tactics that baffled the enemy. When hegemony forces used their advanced sensors to locate human positions, Kim So-ra's troops switched to low-tech communication methods that could not be detected. When the aliens deployed their energy weapons, human soldiers used reflective surfaces and electromagnetic pulses to disrupt their targeting systems. These humans fight like no species we have encountered, reported Hegemony Ground Commander Vexthor. When we counter one of their tactics, they immediately switch to something completely different. They seem to enjoy fighting against superior technology. The truth was that humans did not see technology as a crutch to depend on, but as a tool to be used creatively. When their advanced equipment failed, they improvised solutions using whatever materials were available. When their communication systems were jammed, they used hand signals and prearranged plans. Most frustrating for the hegemony was that humans seemed to get stronger as the battle became more difficult, while other species became demoralized when their technology failed. Humans became more creative and determined. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Bae In-ho during the ground battle, "the enemy has destroyed our main communications center and disabled our heavy weapons. What are your orders?" "Excellent," replied Colonel Kim So-ra with a grin. "Now they think they have us beaten. Switch to guerrilla tactics and show them what humans can do with nothing but determination and creativity." The hegemony forces soon found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. Human soldiers used the terrain, improvised weapons, and psychological warfare to turn every advantage against the invaders. Hegemony troops, trained to fight using sophisticated technology and rigid doctrine, struggled against opponents who specialized in chaos and adaptation. But the most important battle was not happening in space or on colonial worlds. It was happening in the communication networks of the galaxy itself. Dr. Jung Hai-wan, working from a hidden research station, broadcast her discoveries about the void plague to every species in the galaxy. Her message was simple but revolutionary. The plague was not humanity's enemy, but their validation. "The ancient civilization that created the void plague left us a test," she announced. They wanted to find species that could adapt, cooperate, and solve problems through wisdom rather than pure technology. The plague attacks advanced civilizations not to destroy them, but to force them to find new approaches. As Jung Hai-wan's broadcast spread throughout the galaxy, species began to understand what was really happening. The humans were not fighting the plague by being immune to it. They were passing the test by doing exactly what the test was designed to measure. The Luminals were the first major species to publicly support humanity. Captain Zorthak transmitted a message that was received throughout the galaxy. "The humans saved our crew when our advanced technology failed us. Now they are offering to save all of us. Perhaps it is time to stop measuring intelligence by technological sophistication and start measuring it by wisdom and compassion." The resonance followed, their crystal voices harmonizing in a declaration that shocked the Confederation. "We formally recognize humanity as our equals and request their protection during this crisis. Their primitive technology may be our salvation." One by one, species that had dismissed humans as inferior began declaring their support for humanity's approach to the plague crisis. Even some Vorthak military units abandoned their allegiance to the hegemony and offered their services to human commanders. The turning point came when the plague itself began to change its behavior. Instead of simply consuming advanced civilizations, it began to retreat from areas where humans and aliens were working together. The ancient test system recognized that its criteria were being met. High Counselor Kethvar of the hegemony watched his invasion fleet suffer defeat after defeat and realized that his entire worldview was crumbling. "This is impossible," he transmitted to his remaining forces. "Primitive species cannot defeat advanced civilizations. It violates the natural order of the galaxy." "Perhaps," replied Admiral Park Dongwoo in a direct transmission to the hegemony command ship. "The problem is your definition of primitive. We may have simpler technology, but we have something your species seems to have forgotten: the ability to learn, adapt, and work together even when everything seems hopeless." As the hegemony fleet began to retreat, defeated by the primitive species they had tried to destroy, The galaxy's power structure began to shift fundamentally. Species that had ruled for millennia found their authority questioned by those they had dominated. The Void Plague, recognizing that its test was being passed, began to transmit new signals throughout the galaxy. Ancient star maps appeared on communication networks, showing the location of hidden worlds where the galaxy's original creators had left their greatest discoveries. "The test is nearly complete," Dr. Jung Hai-wan announced, as she decoded the ancient transmissions. "The plague creators are offering to share their knowledge with species that have proven worthy, but the offer is not going to the most technologically advanced civilizations. It is going to those who have demonstrated wisdom, cooperation, and the ability to find strength in diversity. For the first time in galactic history, being primitive was not a disadvantage. It was the key to inheriting the greatest technological treasure in the universe." The galaxy had stopped laughing at humans. Now it was listening to them, learning from them, and following their lead toward a future that none of the advanced species could have imagined. The species that everyone had dismissed as too weak to matter had become the foundation upon which a new galactic civilization would be built. And they had done it not by becoming more like their advanced neighbors, but by remaining uniquely, stubbornly, brilliantly human. Captain Baek Ji-hun stood on the bridge of the human vessel Unity as it approached Nexus Prime. The massive space station that had once symbolized humanity's exclusion from galactic civilization was now the center of the greatest rescue operation in galactic history. The Void Plague had reached the galactic capital and every advanced system was failing. "Captain, we are receiving desperate transmissions from all sections of the station," reported Communications Officer Park Ha-young. "Their quantum computers are shutting down, life support is failing, and evacuation systems are not working. They have maybe 6 hours before total system collapse." Baek Ji-hun looked at the readings from his primitive scanners. The plague energy was so intense around Nexus Prime that it would destroy any advanced technology within minutes. Only human ships with their simple mechanical systems and redundant analog backups could operate in such an environment. "Signal the Hegemony Command Center," Baek Ji-hun ordered. "Tell them that humanity is here to help." The response came immediately from Ambassador Veltar, his voice thick with humiliation and desperation. "Captain Beck, the Hegemony formally requests human assistance. We were wrong about your species. Our pride has nearly destroyed us all." Dr. Jung Hai-wan's voice came over the communication system from the research vessel Discovery. "Captain, I have completed the analysis of the ancient transmissions. The plague creators left us instructions for implementing a galaxy-wide solution, but it requires cooperation between every species and the use of human-designed quantum firewalls." "What kind of cooperation?" Baek Ji-hun asked. "Every species must contribute their unique knowledge and abilities to a network that covers the entire galaxy. The luminals will provide energy manipulation, the resonance will handle harmonic coordination, the Nexari will manage manufacturing, and humans will provide the technological foundation that can resist the plague's effects." It was the most ambitious project in galactic history. Thousands of worlds would need to work together, combining technologies that had never been designed to interface with each other. The success of the entire galaxy depended on species that had been enemies for centuries, learning to trust and cooperate. Commander Ryu Young-min took charge of the massive logistical effort from his command ship Harmony. "All right, everyone. We have 12 hours to install quantum firewalls on every major world in the galaxy. Human engineering teams will handle the technical installation, but we need every species to provide local support and resources." The next 12 hours transformed the galaxy. On worlds that had never seen a human before, alien civilians worked alongside human engineers to install primitive-looking devices that would save their civilizations. Species that had considered humans beneath their notice now followed human instructions without question. "It's remarkable," observed Resonant Prime Zilnara as she watched human technicians work on her crystal homeworld. "Their technology looks so simple, but it interfaces perfectly with our most complex systems. They have found elegant solutions to problems we did not even know existed." On the Vorthak military worlds, General Corthex personally supervised the installation of human devices. My warriors spent years attacking human ships because we thought they were weak, he told his officers. We never understood that their strength came from being underestimated. The most difficult installation was on Nexus Prime itself. The station's systems were so advanced and interconnected that installing primitive human technology seemed impossible. But engineer Nam Soo-jin, working with a mixed team of human and alien specialists, found a way to integrate simple analog systems with the station's quantum architecture. The key is not to replace their advanced systems, Nam Soo-jin explained, as she worked, but to provide a foundation that can support them when they fail. Think of it as giving the station a mechanical heart to keep it alive when its quantum brain stops working. As the installations were completed across the galaxy, Dr. Jung Hai-wan activated the network from her research station. For the first time in millions of years, every inhabited world in the galaxy was connected by a single technological system. But instead of being built on the most advanced technology available, it was built on human principles of reliability, redundancy, and simplicity. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The void plague, which had been consuming star systems at an accelerating rate, suddenly stopped spreading. The ancient energy fields that had been testing the galaxy for millions of years recognized that the test criteria had finally been met. Throughout the galaxy, the plague began to retreat. Dead systems started showing signs of life again. Abandoned worlds transmitted weak signals indicating that their basic systems were coming back online. But the greatest change was not technological. It was social and political. Ambassador Lee Gay Young stood before the reformed Galactic Council in the rebuilt chamber of Nexus Prime. The rigid hierarchy that had once dominated galactic politics had collapsed during the crisis. In its place was a true alliance of equals, with decisions made through cooperation rather than domination. Fellow representatives, Lee Ga-young began, addressing leaders from hundreds of species. We have learned something important during this crisis. Strength does not come from having the most advanced technology or the longest history of civilization. Strength comes from our ability to work together, to adapt when our first approach fails, and to find wisdom in diversity rather than uniformity. The eerie chamber that had once echoed with laughter at human expense was now silent with respectful attention. Species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia listened carefully to words from a representative of the civilization they had once dismissed as primitive. The void plague was not our enemy, Lee Ga-young continued. It was our teacher. It showed us that no single species, no matter how advanced, has all the answers. We succeed when we combine our different strengths and perspectives to solve problems that none of us could handle alone. High Counselor Kethvar of the Hegemony, his pride finally broken by the events of recent months, stood to address the council. The Hegemony wishes to formally apologize to humanity and to all species we have dismissed or dominated through our arrogance. We request permission to learn from those we once considered our inferiors. Similar statements came from representatives of other species. The Nexari requested human guidance in redesigning their manufacturing systems to be more reliable. The Luminals asked for human advice on creating backup systems for their energy-based technology. Even the proud Vorthak Empire requested human assistance in developing more adaptive military doctrine. The final moment of transformation came when the ancient archives left by the plague creators were discovered on a dead world at the galaxy's center. The messages left by that long-vanished civilization explained their purpose in creating the test. To those who inherit our legacy, the ancient message began, know that we created this test not to destroy civilizations, but to identify those worthy of our greatest discoveries. We learned through our own evolution that technological advancement, without wisdom, leads to stagnation and eventual destruction. The message continued with revelations that shocked even the most advanced species in the galaxy. The inheritors of our knowledge will not be those who achieve perfection in technology, but those who embrace imperfection and grow stronger through adversity. They will not conquer through power, but lead through wisdom gained in struggle. Jung Hae-won translated the final section of the ancient text as representatives from across the galaxy listened in amazement. You have proven that strength comes not from what you are, but from what you choose to become. The small species that others dismissed has shown the greatest wisdom. To them, we entrust the future of the galaxy. The implications were staggering. Hidden throughout the galaxy were vaults containing technologies that could transform entire civilizations. Star charts showing the location of habitable worlds in distant galaxies. Scientific knowledge that could solve problems no species had even identified yet. All of it was now available to the galaxy, but under human guidance and wisdom. President Yu Sang-wook, finally released from hegemony custody, addressed the council with words that would be remembered for generations. We accept this responsibility not as conquerors, but as servants. The knowledge of the ancients belongs to all species, but it must be shared wisely and used for the benefit of everyone. The transformation of galactic society happened remarkably quickly. Within months, the rigid categories that had separated species into superior and inferior classifications were abolished. The Confederation was restructured as a true democratic alliance where decisions were made by consensus rather than dominance. Human engineers worked alongside alien scientists to create hybrid technologies that combined the best of all species' capabilities. Fourth Act tactical expertise was combined with human adaptability to create new defensive strategies. Luminal energy manipulation was enhanced with human reliability engineering to create more stable systems. Children across the galaxy began learning in integrated schools where young humans played alongside alien students. Species that had once seemed incompatible now worked together, combining their unique strengths to tackle challenges that had seemed impossible. The space station,